Hi folks, and welcome to episode 25 of the 59th Minute FPL podcast. I'm the FPL General, recording on Friday the 25th of January. So we've got an FA Cup weekend coming up, and then we've got a midweek game week 24, Tuesday and Wednesday. So going to look ahead to that. Going to be a usual format this week. I've got a special shout out to start with, then a bit of a game week 23 review, update my watch list, take a couple of questions from the Twitter community, and then talk about captaincy and transfers for game week 24. So to start things off, a big shout out to Glenn Murray of Brighton, who was substituted in the 59th minute in game week 23. Now that's his second 59th minute appearance of the season. So he joins his teammate Pascal Gross in the race to the first player to get a hat-trick of 59th minute appearances this season. So Chris Hughton again showing that he loves a 59th minute substitution. So it's going to be interesting to see now who wins that race. Will it be Gross or will it be Glenn Murray this season? I need to actually go and have a look through all the Brighton players and tally up how many 59 minute appearances there are in total, because Chris Hughton does seem to be the guy who likes them most. So well done to Glenn Murray. Or not so well done, depending on how you want to look at that one. So game week 23 review for me. I had a good game week for a change. So I've arrested the slide, got myself a green arrow. I went into the game week with a -4, so I made 3 transfers. So I got burned by bringing in Alexander-Arnold early in place of Alonso. But then the 2 other transfers I did worked out well. So I brought in Salah and captained him for 30 points, and I brought in Rashford for his 8 points, and I sold Harry Kane, who obviously got 0, and Roberto Pereira, who got 3. So that was a -4 that worked out pretty well. Salah obviously hurt me over the Christmas period, and I probably should have got him back in sooner, but good to have him back in now, and it's just going to be auto captain Salah for the next couple of weeks and try and make gains elsewhere. So it was 75 points, with the -4 it was 71. That gave me a green arrow from 270k to 230k. So a healthy green arrow, and hopefully I can build on that now in the coming game weeks. Positives, first of all, obviously Salah captain, Sané as well, 30 points in the last 3 game weeks for Sané for me, so glad I've held on to him. So I brought in Sané and Sterling just before Christmas, and I'm glad I've held on to Sané during this period. He's been great value. Pogba and Rashford, who most people have, delivering the goods again. Jimenez again just continues to be great value, and Robertson as well continued his with another 5 points. So every appearance Robertson has against the non-top 6, he's delivered at least 5 points, which is just superb this season. So he's nailed on in my team for the rest of the season. I think he's the most expensive defender now, around 6.7 million. So it's not that easy to get him in as it was earlier, and I'm just glad I've had him, for quite a while now. Plenty of negatives as well, despite the good game week. Hazard blanking again, Richarlison blanking for the 4th week running. So patience is wearing very thin with Richarlison. I'll talk about him a little bit later because there's a question on him. Matt Doherty getting benched was frustrating as well, but Wolves didn't keep a clean sheet anyway. But you would have fancied him possibly for some attacking returns with Wolves scoring 4 goals. So hopefully he comes right back into the team. There were some rumours on social media that it was his partner gave birth the night before the game. I'm not sure if that's true or not. There was talk that he just didn't get any sleep, which would explain why he was on the bench. So hopefully that is the case and he comes right back in. I felt that the guy Vinagre didn't have a great game, so I would expect Johnny to go back to left wing back and Doherty to come back in at right wing back in midweek. So hopefully that is the case. Fabianski again, no clean sheet, but you don't expect clean sheets from him every week. I'm still happy to continue with Fabianski as a set and forget goalkeeper, so I'm not really worried about that. It's a low priority. Goalkeeper's always a low priority position for me when it comes to transfers, so I've got a lot of other issues that need to be dealt with first. Alexander-Arnold obviously didn't play, but I'm happy just to hold on to him, and hopefully he's back sooner rather than later. It would be great if he comes back in midweek against Leicester. but he should definitely be back then the weekend. So again, I'm in no rush to get rid of him. I'm going to want him when he's fit again anyway, so I'm happy just to bench him. Another problem I have is Kamara. So brought him in at the wrong time, just before he decides to go off the rails. Looks like he's just going to be it doesn't look like he's going to play for Fulham again. I think he's been suspended now. Talk that he was arrested. So absolutely nightmare bringing him in just before that happened. But nothing you can do about these things. And I've got Balbuena as well, who is another problem I need to deal with. So at the moment, I'm sitting on Alexander-Arnold, Kamara and Balbuena. 3 injured or AWOL players. So that's the positive and negatives from Game Week 23. So watched quite a few games at the weekend, and I recorded a few and watched them during the week this week as well. So I've updated my watch list, haven't done so. So I'm going to talk about a few players I've added and a few players that I've removed. First player I've added is Benjamin Mendy. He made an appearance in the EFL Cup for City, so he's getting back to fitness. I'm not in a rush to get him back in, because we've seen with KDB this season, they tend to be eased back in, and I would expect that with Mendy as well. I don't expect him to come back in now and play every Premier League game, so it's a wait and see, and it's a watch list for Mendy. Now, going back to when he was playing this season, he played 9 games and he got 6 assists and he got 4 clean sheets. So Mendy was a great option before he got injured. He's dropped now to 6.1 million, so it's easy to get to him, maybe from someone like Alonso, if you've lost patience with Alonso. A point on Alonso, I watched that Chelsea game last night against Spurs, and the guy Emerson had a great game at left back, so I would expect him to get some game time in the Premier League sooner rather than later. So I know Chelsea fans have been calling for that for quite a while, but it was the first time I've seen Emerson put in a really, really good performance, so question marks over Alonso's starts now. So Mendy, I'll give him a few weeks, but if he starts getting 90 minutes regularly, definitely someone I'll be looking at bringing in. The next player I've added is Diogo Jota from Wolves. So a player I owned, I think I owned him for the first 3 game weeks. Possibly it was just the first 2 game weeks, and he was very disappointing. Hat-trick at the weekend, to catch everyone's attention. Passed the eye test with flying colours. 5 big chances in that game. That caught my eye when I was looking at the stats. I don't remember seeing a player having 5 big chances in a game this season. I think Jota might be the first one. Now, I'm probably wrong on that, but that definitely stood out looking at the stats for midfielders from Game Week 23. And it's not just a flash in the pan with Jota. Before, in his last 5 appearances, he's got 5 goals and 2 assists. And going back to last season, the reason why we had him in our Game Week 1 teams, I think he scored 17 goals for Wolves last season. I think he was probably their top goal scorer in the Championship. And looking back on his early career as well, he's got good stats from his previous clubs. And I was surprised to see that he was only 22 years old. So I think he's a great option. He's on my watch list, and I'm actually very tempted to get rid of Richarlison to bring him in. Now, a lot of people are asking, should we double up with Jimenez? A lot of people already have Doherty as well, or maybe Bennett or Patricio. So people are quite wary of doubling up on, or people are wary of tripling up on Wolves. But for me, I don't see it as an issue. Wolves have great fixtures coming up. They've got West Ham, Everton, Newcastle, Bournemouth and Huddersfield in the next 5. And I don't really see an issue, getting Jota in. I don't think owning Jimenez should stop you from getting Jota, because I don't really see them having an impact on each other. If anything, they could link up very well, which they did at the weekend, and both could deliver points. So, I wouldn't let owning Jimenez put you off getting Jota, and it's definitely something I'm thinking about. Another midfielder who has caught my eye is James Ward-Prowse at Southampton. He's priced at 5 million. He seems to be a favourite of Hasenhüttl. He's played 90 minutes in the last 4 games, which is more minutes that he's got at any stage this season. and he's picked up 2 goals in his last 4. Back-to-back goals. And another stat that caught my eye as well, 10 chances created in the last 4 game weeks. We know he's excellent from set pieces. He takes corners, he takes direct free kicks, and if Ings is not on the pitch, there's a very good chance that he'll be the penalty taker as well. So James Ward-Prowse, very, very interesting option, and I think I prefer him to Redmond at the moment. Redmond's 5.2, but I think I just prefer Ward-Prowse for the set pieces, and he's creating a lot of chances. I've seen an interesting tweet in the last couple of days as well. It was from one of the guys at StatsBomb, who mentioned that Pascal Gross, caught their attention while he was at Ingolstadt, who were managed by Hasenhüttl at the time. So they're suggesting that Ward-Prowse could do very well over the coming weeks with set pieces and chance creation. So definitely someone to keep an eye on. Southampton's fixtures are okay. They've got Palace, Burnley, Cardiff, Arsenal and Fulham. So it's a good a time as any to get on the Southampton assets, and I've been very impressed by them under the new manager, and I expect them to claw themselves away from the relegation dogfight over the coming weeks. So definitely JWP, someone to keep an eye on. I mentioned Pascal Gross there when I was talking about Ward-Prowse. He's someone I've added to the watch list this week as well. He was an excellent option last season, scored 7 goals and got 8 assists. Now he's only got 2 goals and 1 assist this season, and he's more expensive obviously than he was last season. He's 6.7 at the moment. I probably do prefer the likes of Jota and Ward-Prowse, but Gross is another option for people looking for a differential. Brighton again, another side who have good fixtures. Fulham, Watford, Burnley, but it's worth noting they will blank in game week 27. So that'll probably be enough to put people off Pascal Gross. But I just wanted to throw him in there because he started to pick up form. I think he's got a goal and an assist in the last 3 games, and he's, I mentioned him when I was giving the shout-outs. He's got a couple of 59-minute shout-outs this season, but recently he's been playing at least 80 minutes in most games. So again, he's another player who could be on penalties if Glenn Murray's not on the pitch. So definitely another one to throw into the mix when it comes to midfielders. But as I say, I think Jota is the one I'm most interested in. I'd probably put Ward-Prowse second then, and Gross would probably come in third. A goalkeeper now who is an option for people who want a new goalkeeper. Tom Heaton has played the last 4 games for Burnley, and it's no surprise that their defensive stats have improved since he's gone back in there. I think he's a better goalkeeper than Joe Hart, and he organises defence better. 4.8 million, 2 clean sheets in the last 4, and he's also picked up bonus points in those 2 games as well where he picked up the clean sheet. So he's an option as a set and forget goalkeeper. There is always the worry about Hart and Pope. I don't think there's any worry about Joe Hart at the moment. It's probably more Pope, who had a very good season last season. Burnley goalkeepers have always been great options. We had 2 great seasons from Tom Heaton. Then we had a great season from Nick Pope last season, which I benefited from. So I'm always, warm on the idea of Burnley goalkeepers, and they seem to have turned the corner now after a very tough first half of the season. So definitely one to consider if you're looking for a new goalkeeper, Tom Heaton. Just going to briefly mention now a few players that I've removed from my watch list this week. Pedro and Willian are both gone, mainly just because of Chelsea's form, and the fact now that Higuain has come in as well. So I would expect Hazard to move back to the left, and that's one less midfield spot for Pedro and Willian. So we could see them competing for places now. So I'm not interested in Pedro and Willian just because there's question marks over their game time, and Chelsea haven't been pulling up any trees. So I own Hazard and I'm keeping Hazard, and Higuain is going to be on my watch list now as well. But I'm going to wait and see how he settles in. There's no guarantee that he starts midweek, especially when he missed the game last night. So it'll be interesting to see how he settles into the Premier League. Obviously, he's a proven goal scorer, which I always like. I think he's got, across Europe over the last couple of seasons, he's right up there with the best. And 9.5 is a very good price. It's cheaper than I expected him to be, so that's going to entice a lot of people in. But for me, it's just a wait and see. Aguero's another player I've removed. Again, it's just competition with Jesus. We can never predict what Pep is going to do. I want my players to play every week, so I'm not interested in Aguero anymore. Mitrovic, no longer on my watch list because he's a nutcase. Watching that Fulham Spurs game, he's liable to get sent off any given week. So, loves a yellow card, loves wrestling players while he's on the pitch. So, and again, Fulham are just pretty awful. So, Mitrovic he's only scored one goal probably in the last, around 10 or 11 games now. So, just doesn't justify bringing him in. The final player I've removed from the watch list this week is Felipe Anderson, a player who's had an excellent season. I've never owned him, and he's been on my watch list for quite a while now, but he's got 5 blanks in the last 6 games, and those kind of stats are not someone I want to pay 7.3 million for, so he's gone. And I think anyone who owns him, similar to me with Richarlison, are going to be thinking about moving him on. So that's the watch list covered. I'm going to move on now to tackle a couple of questions from Twitter. A lot of the questions this week were about blanks and double game weeks, which is to be expected at this time of year. A lot of people are speculating what's going to happen. There's talk that there could be a double game week in 25. Chelsea and Man City could potentially have double game weeks there. But the long and short of it is we don't know yet. So I'm not going to tackle questions that we don't know yet. Hopefully by the deadline on Tuesday, we'll have more information about what's going to happen with those Game Week 27 fixtures that need to be rearranged. So that's, I think it's Chelsea and Brighton and Man City, Everton. So they could be in double Game Week 25, but they could be later in the season as well, after Game Week 27. So we just don't know. So the key to that is just hold your transfers this week. Do not make transfers until Monday, Tuesday, because we're going to hopefully have more information by the time Tuesday rolls around. And if you make a transfer now, things could very quickly change. The FPL landscape can change regarding fixtures, and you'll regret making an early move. So if ever there was a game week this season to be patient, it's this one. So just forget about FPL for a couple of days, come back Monday, Tuesday, and see where we're at and see what the situation is. So that's the main takeaway from this podcast. Be patient. Don't make transfers until Monday or Tuesday until we have more information. So I've picked out 4 questions here that cover some of the main topics. The first one came in from FPL Logic. And it's a question I'm asking myself this week. Should we hold on to Richarlison after 4 blanks in a row? So I'm getting very impatient with Richarlison. I've got a lot of issues to deal with, the likes of Balbuena, Kamara. TAA is a slight worry as well. So I've got other fires to fight, but I think if I didn't have other fires to fight, I would be very tempted just to move Richarlison to Jota this week. Now, people will argue Richarlison has a great fixture, Huddersfield this weekend, so it might not be the best time to move him on. But looking at his stats and things, and just the eye test in recent weeks, he really is failing all of those things. I think he only had 1 touch in the penalty area at the weekend, subbed off on 65 minutes. Compare that to Jota. Jota had 10 penalty area touches at the weekend. So it's Richarlison has gone off the boil completely. And the other thing I don't like about Richarlison is Everton. I don't really like Everton this season. They're definitely underperforming. When I watch them, they never convince me that they're going to score 3-4 goals, which we've possibly associated with Marco Silva teams in the past. They've been really poor recently, and that's another reason why I don't like Richarlison anymore. But more than likely, I'm going to keep him for Huddersfield just because I've got other fires to fight. But I think for anyone who doesn't have other issues, there's logic to just shipping Richarlison and just being done with him, because it doesn't look good. His body language and things like that, it just doesn't look good. Next question was from FPL Governor. If Higuain begins scoring regularly, should we double up with Hazard? So I've mentioned that I'm probably going to wait and see with Higuain, and one of the main reasons for that is I want to bank a transfer this week. I want to carry 2 into game week 25 just in case there is a double game week for Chelsea or City, or possibly even both. But I do expect Higuain to hit the ground running, and I think, I'm going to wait and see because of my situation, but I think those who take a chance on him and bring him in for Bournemouth this week, it's Bournemouth this week and then it's Huddersfield. So I was listening to Nick Triggerlips, his podcast yesterday, and then he made a good point about sometimes patience, you can miss out on points by being patient. So Nick's example was he got Rashford in right away when Solskjaer took over, and a lot of people did the same with Pogba. People like me were saying just wait and see how they perform under the new manager. That's usually the way I approach things, but there's definitely gains can be made by taking a chance and moving early, and that could definitely be the case with Higuain, because I do expect him to start against Bournemouth, and it's Bournemouth and Huddersfield in his first two games, and you can't really ask for two better fixtures, to get off the ground in the Premier League. So if you're in a situation where you don't have any other issues in your team and you've got an easy move to Higuain, if you've got a striker that you're unhappy with and you've got a free transfer and you've got cash, I wouldn't rule out getting Higuain in this week for the Bournemouth game. So the question is, would I double up on Hazard and Higuain if Higuain starts scoring? I would have no problem doing that, because if Higuain starts scoring, it means Chelsea are scoring, and it probably means Hazard is getting assists as well and hopefully scoring himself. So hopefully Higuain can galvanise the Chelsea attack and improve things for Hazard, and if things improve for Hazard, I'll definitely be looking at Higuain as well. Next question was from Paul Whitehouse. What are my plans for Kamara? My plans are to head down to London, find him, and give him a good shake. But it was very, very unlucky, bad timing. I think, Paul, you might have brought him in around the same time as me. Brought him in the week before he goes berserk and gets suspended by the club now. But my own plans for Kamara, again, it's kind of like the goalkeeper. It's a low priority. I'm probably just going to keep him for a few weeks as a dud third sub, and maybe I'd probably move Balbuena out before I move Kamara out, and then that if I move Balbuena out and once TAA comes back, I'll have two playing subs then, and I can probably survive with two playing subs for a while anyway, and just leave Kamara, because there's no real replacements for him unless you upgrade. So I won't be upgrading until that chance comes around. But I'm in a 3-5-2 formation now, so I'm quite happy just to leave Kamara as a third sub. Last question I'll tackle this week is from Luis Lopez. So I said I wouldn't talk about possible double game weeks and things like that, but I do want to answer this one, because Lewis asked me, if Chelsea do have a double game week 25, which would be against Brighton and Huddersfield, would I consider triple captain Eden Hazard? Now, people who follow me on social media will know my history with Hazard. He trolled me massively last season, and I've owned him this season since game week 5. So I've had a pretty good season with Hazard this season. Obviously, he's trolled most of us recently, but I've still got a lot of faith in Hazard, for the rest of the season. And I haven't really talked about my chip plans or strategies or anything on podcast yet, mainly because we don't have the information needed to finalise a strategy. An upcoming podcast I will be doing so once we have that information, but my initial plans, without having given it too much thought yet, is I'll probably be free hitting in the first double game week this season, and then I'll probably be bench boosting in the later double game week. So that leaves triple captaincy then for the third double game week, which we don't know when that will be yet. And that's where we're thinking there could be one in game week 25 for Chelsea and possibly City as well. And I just think if Chelsea are in a double game week against Brighton and Huddersfield, I can't look past Hazard for triple captaincy this season. The good thing about a double game week early in the season as well is there's less likely rotation. And Hazard's a player who doesn't tend to get rotated as much as players from the likes of City and even Liverpool as well. So what we've seen in recent, previous seasons is when we triple captain, say game week 37 or game week 34, you often, only get a game or a game and a half out of your triple captain because they get rotated. I think we've seen that with Harry Kane last season, but I think it was down to illness. I think he had a flu, and he only played. I think he might have only played one of the games last season, or very little of the second one. So I'm licking my lips at the potential for a double Chelsea game week in 25, because that is most likely where I will play my triple captainship this season. It'll be interesting if Higuain comes in and scores against Bournemouth. He'll be another option as a triple captain. And he'll be a differential because not a lot of people will own him. So I definitely like the idea of triple captain Hazard, double game week 25. If that happens now, my gut feeling is that won't happen, because to me it doesn't give the fans much notice. People who've made who need to make travel plans and who have made travel plans and policing and all that kind of thing, but it could happen, and hopefully we'll know in the next couple of days if that's going to happen. And definitely Hazard triple captain is definitely on my mind. So that is some of the questions covered. Moving on now to game week 24 captaincy and transfer. So captaincy first of all, I put up a poll today on Twitter, and I just put up Salah and Aubameyang, because to me they're the two standout options this week. Salah plays Leicester at home and Aubameyang has got Cardiff at home. So I think Salah got about 70% of the vote. So that tells you all you need to know. For me, I brought in Salah just last game week with a view to captaining him for the next 4 game weeks. So that was, captaining him last week and captaining him for the next 3 game weeks. And I'm going to stick to that plan. It's auto-captain Salah for me for the next few weeks. I think anyone who owns Aubameyang, you've got to give him serious consideration against Cardiff this week. Yes, he's been very frustrating recently, but Arsenal could easily score 4 or 5 goals against Cardiff. So I think Aubameyang is definitely one to consider. It's a very tough decision if you've got Salah and Aubameyang. I'm kind of happy that I don't have both this week, because that is a tough one. The other options that people will be considering, Hazard against Bournemouth, but it's very hard to captain Hazard after what he's done in recent weeks. He did look a lot better in the Cup last night, got himself on the score sheet. I expect his points to improve now, playing back in his favourite position. Man City play Newcastle away. Sterling and Sané are always captaincy options. There's always the risk of rotation. United play Burnley this weekend. Pogba and Rashford are options as well for anyone who wants to go that way. But for me, it's not one to overthink. It's Mo Salah against Leicester. Leicester were absolutely atrocious defensively against Wolves. Maguire picked up an injury in that game, so if he's out, they're going to be even weaker defensively. So if Wes Morgan is playing in a defence against Mo Salah, it's going to be Mo Captain Salah all day for me. My transfers for midweek, now again, haven't given them any thought really, because we just have to wait until Monday or Tuesday this week for information about possible doubles and blanks. Most likely I'll bank the transfer. Looking at my team for midweek, it looks fine without having to make any transfers. It would probably mean, if Trent is not back, he'll probably be on the bench alongside Balbuena and Kamara. So, I'd be down to the bare bones of 11. But looking at the players in my side, I would expect all 11 to play. The other option would be, to avoid the risk of, fielding 10 players, just get rid of Balbuena and get Bednarak in, which frees up a bit of cash as well. So if somebody like Doherty, Robertson or Wan-Bissaka missed out, at least then I would have Bednarak coming in. So that will probably be my transfer if I do make a transfer. The other temptation, which I can't shake from my mind, is Jota. I would really like to get him in for Richarlison, even though Richarlison has a good fixture. I'm kind of done with him, I think. And I would like to do that move this week, but I think the smarter play is probably to hold, either bank the transfer or take out that weak link in Balbuena and get in a player. So that's where I'm at in my early thoughts. As I say, it's only Friday. Lots can change between now and Tuesday. Before you do make any of your transfers for Game Week 24, be sure to check out the eye test podcast I did last week. So they're around 5 to 10 minutes long. eye test podcasts from Gameweek 23. So I did one for Wolves Leicester, one for Arsenal Chelsea, and I did one this week as well for Fulham and Spurs. So check those out. Something else I want to mention as well, you've probably seen a couple of tweets about it. From time to time, I do the Match of the Day challenge, which is where you avoid all the results, all the team news. You just avoid everything FPL wise. You delete all the apps from your phone, so you don't know what's happening in the Premier League basically. And then you sit down and you watch the highlights live without knowing anything, which is a very exciting way to watch Match of the Day. But the main reason I do that is because it takes the stress out of the Saturday. So FPL can be very stressful if you're following the results in real time, and if you just switch everything off, you can just go about your day and spend time with family and friends and just forget about FPL and just enjoy your weekend, and then condense the stress into an hour and a half of television, which it can be painful as well, but it's better than stressing all day long. So there was a good tweet by the caretaker, FPL caretaker I think his Twitter handle is, about he did the Match of the Day challenge last week, and he was just saying how much more enjoyable his weekend was when he took a step back from technology and the Premier League and FPL. So I retweeted that, and I was thinking we could all, anyone who wants to try it, I'm sure a lot of people have never done it before. So Gameweek 25, I'm going to try it. I'm going to do it myself in Gameweek 25. So that's Saturday, next Saturday. So you just, once the transfer deadline passes, there's nothing you can do about your team. So you delete all your apps, or you just switch off your phone for the day, and then you watch Match of the Day at 10:30 at night, or whatever time it is, wherever you are, and you just you just forget about the Premier League for that Saturday. You forget about FPL, and you just have a good day with family, friends, whatever it is. So anyone who wants to do that, I'll do a few more tweets about it, obviously closer to the time. But it's highly recommended, and you'd be surprised, how enjoyable it can be, especially if you have a good, if FPL goes well for you. It's very enjoyable to watch the games and kind of tally up your points as Match of the Day is unfolding. So I'll probably do it for the Saturday. It's a big challenge to do Saturday and Sunday all in one, because it's very hard to avoid results for 2 days, on TV and phones and things like that. So I'd probably just do Saturday, Game Week 25. And anyone who wants to try it this week, it's actually easier to do it midweek, because, for example, Tuesday night, you can just switch off your phone for 3 hours and then watch the highlights afterwards. The issue in the UK with that is usually Match of the Day is not on until Wednesday, when there's games on Tuesday and Wednesday. So I'll probably sit down and watch the games Tuesday and Wednesday night instead. Last thing I'll say before I finish is, if you've enjoyed the podcast, if you enjoy my FPL content, you can support me on Patreon. So as most people know, I do this fantasy stuff full time. So Patreon is my main source of income this year, and any support there is appreciated, no matter how big or small it is. And there's a lot of benefits on my Patreon page as well, which you'll find at patreon.com/FPL General. I'll be doing a live stream this Sunday night, a 1 hour YouTube live stream for my patrons. So you can sign up to Patreon to check that one out. On our Slack channel as well, which you get access to at the $4 or $6 tier, we've created a designated blank and double game week channel now. So we'll be navigating all of that, for the rest of the season together, to hopefully try and get the best out of it. So the aim of our Slack channel is that everyone in there, achieves their best ever season in FPL, and a lot of people are on course to do that. We've got a mini league. There's just over 200 people in our mini league, and I was looking at it this week. 5 people are in the top 1k, 75 patrons are in the top 50k, and 101 patrons are in the top 100k. So I'd like to think, the Patreon offering, the Patreon podcast, the Patreon live streams, the Slack channel, that is playing a big part in those patrons doing well. So if you want to check that out, as I said, you'll find a link on my Twitter account at FPL General. Enjoy your weekend. Thanks as always for listening, and all the likes, shares, retweets, thumbs up, iTunes reviews, they're all much appreciated. Helps me get the podcast out there a bit more. Great numbers in the last few weeks. I'm very close to hitting 10,000 listeners, which still just blows me away. I find it very hard to believe that 10,000 people listen to me, get my thoughts, just share my thoughts on FPL. But much appreciated. Thanks to everyone who listens and shares the pod. Enjoy your weekend. Hold off on those transfers, and I think so. Next week we've got a midweek, and then we've got weekend fixtures again. So I will try and squeeze a podcast in on Thursday next week. Between 24 and 25. Talk to you all soon, folks.